Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. Today I have another mini fragrance haul video. Today I'm going to try out 5 new fragrances from the brand of Fragrance World that are new for my collection. And the fragrances that I'm going to try out today are called Tobacco Myth, which is inspired by Carolina Herrera's Mystery Tobacco. Vanille Tobacco, which as you can probably guess is inspired by Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. Bavaria Per Homme, which is inspired by Bulgari's Aqua. And then there are 2 from the Artisan collection from Fragrance World. The first one is called Hibiscus Magic, and that one is inspired by Maison Crivelli's Hibiscus Mahajat. And the second one is called Arabian Incense, and that one is inspired by Atelier des Ors L'Armes du Desert. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's a very strange French name. So let's try all 5 of them, let's unbox them and let's try them for the first time. Let's start with the 2 tobacco-based fragrances, and the first one that I'm going to try out will be Vanille Tobacco, which is inspired by Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. I'm not going to show you the packaging, and the bottle very closely. I'll upload a picture of the bottle right here because it's very similar to the original fragrance, and I don't want to get in trouble for showing you, what seems to be a clone bottle. But yeah, looks very similar to the original one. Let's check out the sprayer, and sprayer is actually good, feels a little bit like it's pressurized. And now onto the scent of Vanille Tobacco from Fragrance World. Okay, so yes, this is definitely a fragrance that's very heavily inspired by Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. I immediately get quite a lot of the tobacco notes, a lot of the cinnamon. There's some dry fruits in here, sweet dry fruits, lots of vanilla as well, maybe some incense. And yeah, definitely smells like Tobacco Vanille from Tom Ford, although this feels a little bit less sweet, at least for the moment. Seems to have a little bit more of a bitter type of tobacco leaf note used in here, and the cinnamon is also quite strong in the opening in here. Lacks a bit of the sweetness of Tobacco Vanille, but definitely feels very similar to the original scent, which is very popular and one of the most one of those fragrances that has drawn the most inspirations when it comes to Middle Eastern and clone houses out there. But yeah, definitely close to Tobacco Vanille. I'll give it some time to settle down, and I'll come back in about 1 hour to check the dry down of Vanille Tobacco from Fragrance World. The next one that I'm going to check out will be Tobacco Myth, again from Fragrance World, this one being inspired by Carolina Herrera's Mystery Tobacco. Again, another pretty similar bottle to the one that the original fragrance has, the bottle design. Again, I'm not going to show you the full bottle design. I'm going to upload a picture somewhere around here. Again, I don't want to get in trouble for showing bottles that are very similar to the original fragrances that they have been inspired by. Let's check out the sprayer in action. Another very decent sprayer, although the one on Vanille Tobacco seemed to be a little bit better. And let's check out the smell of Tobacco Myth. Okay, yes, a definite inspiration from Mystery Tobacco from Carolina Herrera. Very nice, very strong tobacco based fragrance with a strong tobacco note. This one though feels sweeter compared to the first one that I just tried. There's some greenness in here, some freshness as well, maybe something like a ginger note. That adds a bit of freshness in the opening of this fragrance, not much spiciness to talk about. And also there's definitely a boozy note in here as well, like pretty much all other good inspirations of Mystery Tobacco from Carolina Herrera. And yeah, seems to be a pretty enjoyable scent, and in fact probably this, at least for the moment, has the strongest sort of boozy note that I get out of all inspirations from of Mystery Tobacco that I've tried up to date. But definitely very similar to the original fragrance. The next one in line that I'm going to check out will be Bavaria Per Homme. This one is supposedly very heavily inspired by Bulgari's Aqua. Let's see if that holds true. The Packaging is pretty similar to the original fragrance, probably another bottle that I'm not going to be comfortable with showing you. Although actually it's not super close to the original fragrance, so yeah, what the heck. This is how the bottle looks. Definitely seems to be inspired by, you know, Bulgari's Aqua. Let's see the sprayer and the scent of this fragrance. Good sprayer again. So far all 3 sprayers have been very nice. And now onto the scent of Bavaria per Homme. Yeah, definite very strong Bulgari Aqua vibes. I have a little story to tell about the original fragrance. It was one of those fragrances when I was growing up that were, you know, one of the first designer scents, one of the very first designer scents that really captivated, you know, my attention when I was starting to get interested into fragrances. And now to smell something that's very similar to the original fragrance, you know, so many years, 2 decades later almost, it's actually quite interesting. It's actually a very interesting and quite a close take on the original DNA. You get that very fresh, aquatic based scent that has quite a lot of citrusy freshness, but also sweetness in the opening. Probably it's been a while since I've smelled the original. This seems to be very similar to the original, but also carries a bit of more of a sort of a citrusy sweetness along with the freshness of the citruses. Feels a little bit spicy, a little bit green. And also there's a bit of ambery sweetness in the opening in here. Definitely seems to be a little bit more of a sweeter take on the original DNA rather than fresh, but still very reminiscent of the original fragrance. Now let's move on to the two fragrances that are part of the Artisan collection. I'm going to start with the Arabian Incense, and I'm not going to go through the trouble of trying to pronounce the name of the original fragrance again. I'll put it somewhere down in here just for you guys. But yeah, let's check out this one. An interesting fact here is that both, well, in fact all fragrances from the Artisan line I think come in an 80 ml bottle size and have interesting bottle design. The cap seems to be made out of something like, I don't know, something plasticky but feels like a rough stone. Let's check out the sprayer here and let's see how this one smells. Good sprayer actually, pressurized, fantastic. I love pressurized sprayers. And now onto the scent of Arabian Incense. Well, okay. It's a very green opening. Something like a cypress note in here. That's quite strong and gives very strong green vibes in the opening of this fragrance. Also smells very woodsy, something like cedar wood, and quite a lot of incense as well. Feels very smoky. Especially the first sort of like 30 seconds of this fragrance are very green, very smoky, very woodsy. It's a very interesting scent. The more this actually dries down, the woodier it becomes. Maybe there's a hint of something sweet, something like ambery sweetness somewhere in the background. But yeah, a very interesting scent. I can't say that I enjoyed the opening that much, to be honest, but definitely something interesting and unique. Now let's check out the last fragrance featured in today's mini haul, which is called Hibiscus Magic, again from the Artisan collection and fragrance world. Identical bottle design, identical box design like with the Arabian Incense. Very similar cap, all around very similar. I hope the sprayer is again the same. This one being inspired by Hibiscus Magic from Maison Crivelli. Let's check out this sprayer. Interesting, this is not the same sprayer as with the other one. Definitely doesn't feel pressurized like with the Arabian Incense. An interesting fact. 2 fragrances from the same house, from the same line of fragrances with 2 very different sprayers. Okay, so here I've tried the original fragrance, although it's been a while, but this definitely brings strong vibes of Hibiscus Magic. A very sort of a slightly fresh, slightly minty opening with a heavy dose of a rose note in here. some spiciness, and also quite a lot of sweetness. I pick up vanilla sweetness, ambery sweetness. Smells like has an interesting minty opening that's mixed in with the rose note like the original has, and this is pretty similar to that. It's actually quite a unique and interesting scent. Okay, let's quickly talk about the dry downs of all the 5 fragrances that I'm testing out today for the first time, and I'm going to do them in the same order, and I'm going to start with Vanille Tobacco from Fragrance World. Very similar to Tobacco Vanille. Again, on the dry down this remains a little bit less sweet, feels a little bit bitter, slightly harsher compared to the original fragrance, which is to be expected. On the dry down there is a cacao note that adds absolutely no sweetness to the fragrance. Maybe compared to the original, at least from my first try, this lacks a bit of the sweetness of the vanilla note and feels a little bit more woodsy, but still very similar to the original fragrance. Probably in the air will smell pretty similar to the original one as well. The dry down of Tobacco Meat, again from Fragrance World. Again, like the opening, very similar to Mystery Tobacco from Carolina Herrera. The dry down has become in fact closer to the original scent. Still this feels a little bit more boozy compared to the original and all the inspirations of Mystery Tobacco that I have. But on the dry down it seems to be a lot closer to the original and all the other good Mystery Tobacco inspirations that I have in my collection. The dry down has become a little bit more woodsy, slightly powdery, a little bit sweeter as well. All around a very nice scent. I really love this scent profile of the original. That's very similar to something like Red Tobacco, again from Mancera as well. I love tobacco based fragrances, sweet tobacco based fragrances, and Tobacco Meat seems to be really nice. Also seems to be quite strong. Time to talk about the dry down of Bavaria Per Homme from Fragrance World. And this is very similar to the original Bulgari Per Homme, Bulgari Aqua that I remember from all those years ago. Really, this fragrance brought quite a lot of memories. Seems to be a little bit sweeter again compared to the original, like it did in the opening. The dry down seems to be a little bit more woodsy and a little bit more ambery compared to the original fragrance, but definitely carries very strong vibes, from that original fragrance that I remember from so many years ago. Definitely this one brought quite a lot of memories. Time to talk about the dry down of Arabian Incense. Like the opening, this still feels quite green and smoky, but some of the greenness and some of the smokiness has gone away by the time that this is, hitting its dry down. And the dry down is becoming more and more woodsy, and maybe you're introduced to a hint of a little bit stronger ambery sweetness, but it feels not sweet at all, just a hint of ambery sweetness that is trying to balance out all the greenness and the smokiness in this fragrance. It's very woodsy, feels like a very dry type of scent, really interesting and unique scent. Again, I can't say that I'm enjoying it quite a lot, it didn't enjoy the opening very much. The dry down still seems to be very interesting and unique. And a few words about the dry down of Hibiscus Magic. Pretty similar to the original fragrance on the dry down, again like it was in the opening. The dry down again is still dominated by the rose note, which was pretty strong in the opening. This still feels a little bit fresh like it did in the opening. The dry down though, in the dry down it gets a little bit more woodsy. It gets a little bit more musky. There's also, quite a bit of ambery and vanillic sweetness on the dry down. It's not super sweet. Feels like a balance between the woodsy notes, the floral notes of the rose, the sort of the sweetness from the vanilla and the amber, and also feels a little bit leathery and a little bit musky. So guys, in today's video I tried 5 new scents for my collection from Fragrance World for the first time, and the 2 favorites so far, at least from my first impression, seems to be Tobacco Meat and Bavaria Per Homme. I hope that you found this video interesting. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in the next one. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.